Tell me, though, what's his technique? That last strike, it seems invincible.
Hello and welcome to Sons of the Dragon, the Immortal Scientist podcast. My name is Connor.
I'm Omar.
And we are
I'm
joined...
Emma.
Oh,
Sorry.
That's all good. I'll leave it in, it's authentic. So, yeah, we're joined by Emma again, and who runs Daresplaining on Tumblr and Book of the Iron Fist on Tumblr. And Omar, we haven't mentioned Omar's blogs much, but he does have a blog, I Am Iron Fist, and he posts it on the page a lot, so check that out too. But yeah
I haven't been writing much, but I will get to it at some point again.
Yeah, that's all good. So I've been having weird issues with the mic lately. Apologies in advance if it sounds weird, but I tested it before and it seems to be fine.
Yeah, you sound good.
Yeah,
I don't hear any problems on my end.
And thanks to our patrons as well, Ray and Derek. Thank you very much, keeping the lights on. I know our uploads infrequent. The episode was going to be recorded last week, but I couldn't get everyone together till this week. So otherwise, yeah. But hopefully a bit more regular now. And, obviously last time was March 27th. So nearly 2 months now. When I'm trying to keep it monthly, but, it happens. And that was the end of the Bird of Fire saga. Boy, what a weird mess that was. And now we're back to Heroes for Hire. Now, we're going to cover issue 11, but you might want to reread issue 10 if you're reading along. Doesn't take long. We recorded, that's episode 148 back in November 15th of last year, if you wanted to find that and get a recap on that. But we're just going to be jumping straight into 11. So, and in terms of Iron Fist news, there is a paid miniseries right now, which I thought of covering, but Omar, you said it was very short, so it's not worth covering yet.
There's been 3 issues now,
Right?
So we could probably just cover 3 issues at a time. I think it's is it a 6-parter or something?
How many pages are they each?
It's from the app, because it's a digital only release. It's like you read it one panel at a time, so it's hard to figure out if how many pages it really it was a comic. So I'm not exactly sure. So I'm thinking maybe if you're reading something like Marvel Comics Presents, and there's about 6 pages for each story. So I'm thinking something along those lines.
It's not very well advertised, because I didn't hear about it until you messaged the group, or someone messaged the group, I think.
Yeah. I just saw somebody post about it, I think, or I just accidentally saw it from the Marvel Twitter or something, and then went to it immediately. Renewed my subscription to Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah.
I've been struggling to find it, actually, because I have Marvel Unlimited, obviously, but I haven't been able to find it. Is it only on the phone? Because I do use Marvel Unlimited on my computer, and I searched the website and I couldn't find it.
You're all crackly.
Oh, all right. I'll mute myself. You guys continue, and I'll get my other mic. I'll see if that works.
No worries.
Oh.
Okay. Sorry, listeners, for the technical difficulties. I may or may not have edited this out. Who knows? It'll be a nice surprise. So, yeah. But Heroes for Hire 11, Wild Pack Attack, guest starring Deadpool and Silver Sable. We have a cover with Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Deadpool facing off against Paladin, Silver Sable, and Sandman. Madcap, Misty, Colleen, and who was the other guy? The Cat. They didn't make the cut for the cover.
Mm-hmm.
But,
There's too many of them, I guess.
Yeah, but it's a good cover. It's a big...
Yeah, cover.
I thought...
It's,
I thought the fight was a bit disappointing. Because it just didn't go for very long.
Yeah.
But the cover of the issue is like, oh yeah, the end of the last issue is like, yeah, they're gonna fight now, and then they just doesn't go for that long.
Yeah.
But
because they did for a couple of battles. It's they covered. I think they covered. I would think they covered a lot in just one issue. So it's pretty much like how comics back in the day would tell their stories. Unlike now, where you're done reading a comic book in about 5-10 minutes max.
Yeah.
And back then, when I was a kid, I would spend, I'd really spend a lot of time, something like 20, even 30 minutes reading a comic book of all the exposition.
And then you
That was
go back
involved.
even a decade before this, it's... Yeah, I feel like they took the longest to read in the 50s and the 60s, and then they very slowly went down until we're at the point now where it's it's a bit too far. They're too quick to read now and they're too expensive. So,
Yeah.
Testing real quick. Is this better?
Yes, it is.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were just
Yay.
actually going down a rabbit hole of comics are expensive and too short to read.
Yes,
now.
agreed.
But we just talked about the cover, and I mentioned to Omar, disappointed about how short the fight was. It is a few pages, but it basically showed the individual fights, a page, or it just showed one sort of scene from these individual fights, and then the fight was basically over. So
I did like the I agree. I did like the Iron Fist and what's his name? Page.
Cat.
I thought that was a fun one. Cat, yeah. I did enjoy their page, as short as it was.
Yeah.
I'm always kind of a sucker for fights where you have two teams and both teams have very clear counterparts on each team. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. So
We go to the credits.
Yes, let's do that. So John Ostrander is the writer, Scott Collins is the guest penciler, Dan Panosian is the guest inker, John Babcock is the ghost letterer, Joe Rosas is the aghast colorist, Mark Bernardo is the editor, and Bob Harris is Allied Power, or editor-in-chief? I don't know what that means. Sounds like
Probably.
he's a Nazi. I don't know. White Power.
Well, no,
or
that would
something,
be... That's the other one.
Yeah, though,
Yeah.
that's true, but I guess if you use that term today, it sounds... Anyway, so Paladin goes up against Misty, and he, throws a rock at her, and she hits it with her arm, and then Iron Fist and Cat have a fight that seem evenly matched. I believe they fight elsewhere, but I don't know where.
Yeah, it's fun to see Misty and Paladin together because the later, more recent Heroes for Hire series, they team up, and I think they also date for a little while much later on. So it's kind of neat to see them here. I feel like this is probably their first time meeting. I don't know for that for sure, but it feels like it could be.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure if they met up in Power Man and Iron Fist.
I don't think so. I don't remember Paladin being in that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if anyone knows where Iron Fist fights the Cat elsewhere, reach out, let us know. And
He's a Shang-Chi villain, right? So I think that's where he first started.
I think so. I'm not 100% on that, but I know I know he goes with Shang-Chi. And then we have Colleen is fighting Silver Sable. Deadpool is fighting Madcap. And, everyone's, evenly matched, really.
Yeah. And Luke Cage and Sandman.
Actually, well, Deadpool seems to have the upper hand against Madcap. But, which makes sense. And, again, if you listen to the last episode, this is, in the peak Deadpool era, and he's also formidable as well. He's not, a jobber like he becomes later. But, Luke Cage fights Sandman, and Sandman suffocates him, or so we think, and it turns out that Luke Cage basically deliberately lost this and played possum to sabotage the team. And we see it's like a domino effect. Once Luke Cage goes down, Sandman's able to help with Colleen. So Colleen gets taken out, and then they all gang up on Misty, and finally they all gang up on Iron Fist. Well, actually, no, Iron Fist is distracted and gets taken out. Deadpool teleports away. And that was it. I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess I don't mind that they lost because they lost through treachery, so, it's fine. Yeah. But we cut to White Tiger and stuff. Who cares, honestly? Scott Lang is looking into this computer thing about the Hydra base rising, and only Luke Cage is authorized to access it. If you guys want to say anything about White Tiger and Athena, go nuts, because I have nothing to say.
Not really. Yeah. Continuing story arc, etc.
Yeah, is this the first time that she sort of showed
concern for Iron Fist?
Yeah, for Danny.
I don't know.
And I can't remember.
I don't care either, unfortunately. So
I do want it to be like that. Yeah.
I do like that she's a tiger, but she hasn't been around the past issue. And if you look at the previous issue, they had to get Colleen and Misty because everyone else is with the Avengers or somewhere else. So, but Scott was with his daughter, which is why he's looking into this computer thing. And Silver Sable and Iron Fist start talking. Luke Cage breaks out, and the Eshu. What's his idiot's name? He's got some... The Mastermind?
It's just the Master.
Oh. And so he's like, oh, Luke, this is your time. You need to get to this professor. This is why you're here. Because he was in his employ till recently. He needs all the data he has, so Luke's got to, attach a disc to him to get all the information off him. His controller disc, that's right. So Luke busts the door open, and... Mad Hatter's Colleen and Misty are tied up, and he's doing a bad Monty Python routine in front of them. And this is pretty funny. Deadpool shows up, but he's used his holographic thing to look like Mad Hatter, and Mad Hatter's like, "Who's there?" And he goes, "You who?" And he just knocks it out. So. Yeah,
Deadpool's really fun in this issue. I appreciate him being here. Kind of adds that extra element of unpredictability.
Yeah. This is early Deadpool, right?
Yeah, in the 90s. So, yeah, we're on 97, 98. And so this is when Joe Kelly was writing him, which is considered the best run. And it's the first run he had that wasn't a miniseries at the time.
And I think this was Deadpool's popularity was rising. Where if you look at the price guide for Heroes for Hire, so it's issues 1 to 19, I think, plus the annual. You'll notice the price jump when you look at issues 10 and 11. That's because of Deadpool.
Yeah,
interesting.
It was rising, but he was nowhere near as popular as he is now.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, true. Yeah, this was the time when he was like Wolverine. Anytime you want your comic to sell, you insert Wolverine into it. Deadpool was somewhat like that, I guess. Yeah.
Deadpool definitely became like that, yeah. Which is, I want to say, when Deadpool became popular, it was because of the worst run the characters had which is Daniel Way's run, where the character is used to fart jokes, and that resonated with people, and he got popular for all the wrong reasons. But luckily, people like Jerry Dugan have, been writing good Deadpool after that. So Deadpool rescues Chloe and Misty. They run off. They find Luke. Luke finds this professor, and Luke's under the guise of, we're rescuing Danny because he's being tortured. But then Danny shows up and ruins that story, and, he says, there's been a mistake. The professor's actually trying to counteract a weapon he invented, and he escaped his previous employers, and he was doing work for an offshoot of Oracle Inc. So the idea is, Oracle's interest in him is, they want him back for the weapon research or something, and someone else does as well, and again, the guy who... I think what we find out is Oracle Inc. might be an offshoot of the Masterminds or something because of what we see at the end. But the hologram of him pops up and outs Luke as the traitor. He's like, you got to strike now. And Luke doesn't bother denying it. He's like, yep. And they're all kind of like, well, you suck, Luke. You've gone rogue. So they all start fighting, and then Madcap and Paladin show up and ruin it because they don't know that Heroes for Hire and Sable's Wild Pack aren't fighting anymore. So then that distraction lets Luke take out Silver Sable and Colleen. And Danny and Luke start to fight, but then all these goons show up. And Danny tries to fight one. And they anticipate his every move. And then disappear with Luke. So,
they were able to teleport.
Yeah.
They were in all of a sudden, and then they were out, just as fast.
Yeah.
And I was even wondering if the guy that Danny was facing was the Master himself, because the headgear looked exactly the same. And then I realized, no, he's somewhere else, because he just projected himself in front of Luke earlier. So
all their headgear looks like that too.
Same, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just that they all have the same uniform.
Yeah. So Sable's annoyed that they had a traitor in their group. Danny's like, well, you guys all blindly attacked us, so this wouldn't have happened, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, the Mastermind's like, okay, Iron Fist has got to die because Kunlun can't manifest on Earth, because that'll mess with my plans, and Kunlun manifesting on Earth is tied to Danny's heartbeat in the Millennium, so he figures if there's no heartbeat, then Kunlun won't pop up. And, we find out who he's talking to, and it's him. Hammond.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I was very surprised when I saw this.
I'm guessing...
I had no idea, so...
He's a robot, right? So maybe there's something weird going on.
Yeah. So, Luke seems to be presumably brainwashed. So, you never know.
I thought Luke was just a jerk. I haven't been assuming he's being brainwashed. I assumed he's just having some sort of temper tantrum. I remember because I was reading one of Luke Cage's miniseries in the 90s, and he runs into Iron Fist, who's come back to life, and Luke's just a jerk to him. So
but he was going through some stuff in that miniseries.
Right.
The idea that Luke would just kind of blindly abandon everyone to some random sinister force feels weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And going through this issue, sounded like he's really doing this willingly.
Yeah.
Even if you go to the early pages of issue 12, it seems like Luke's been totally duped, and into following the master, but he seems like he's just really into it. Like he really wanted what the master had planned.
Well, he got like a pitch from the master.
So, but yeah,
early on.
But with him, it makes sense because he's an android. But it still surprised me that he was in on this from the very start. So, kudos to John Ostrander. I love the way he just let the story slowly burn in the background until it was time for the reveal, until issue 12, where it's going to be everything's going to be revealed, what's the master been up to, etc. So I like how he played it out for 12 issues. There were some hits and misses. I know Connor didn't really like the Eternals part. I think that was for 3 issues. Everything else, yes. But I enjoyed how he played everything out.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in this series, particularly for a comic that's, relatively speaking, fairly short. And it's, I think, that's sometimes that's a negative if you're not really into whatever current plot line is going on or tie-in. It can feel kind of cluttered or all over the place, but it does make for a good way to add twists like this, where you're looking over here and then remember this over here, and then they can bring things back in. So that when that works, I think it works well.
Yeah, it does. And I like how he portrays Danny, or he's very, he's the serious Danny that we like. He's like a leader.
Yeah, he's
very
not
determined,
winning, which is nice.
He wants. Yeah, I mean, a few quips here and there is fine, but just seeing how determined he is, and how decisive he is with stuff. I really like this version.
Yeah, I think like this series so far, since we seem to be coming up to some sort of wrap up in this story arc, is like, I think it just would have been a lot, and I've expressed this sentiment earlier, but I think this would have been a lot stronger if it had a more focused cast. So like less rotating cast and more, let's just do Iron Fist, Luke, couple of others that actually show up every issue, and like initially I liked the variety of having Black Knight and stuff, but it just made, like, the Black Knight story arc sucked and it was messy, and the strongest issues in this series have been like these two, which just had Iron Fist, Luke, Misty, and Colleen, so all like the Power Man and Iron Fist crew, and then the Iron Fist and Luke with the Punisher. Like, it just make it a new sort of Power Man and Iron Fist series, I think, is like the way to go, really. And I guess we'll see I'll see what the future holds. But it's, I mean, I don't mind Ant-Man, actually. He's fine. Like, but it just feels very chaotic and messy, and I feel like a lot of that is to do with the other stuff going on in the Marvel universe, because stories of this period had to tie into everything, so it was a bit like,
Yeah, I do wish it was more more self-contained.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, because I've read this before, but it's been a while, and then with the long gaps between, reading it just 1 or 2 issues at a time, it really does emphasize, how hard it is to remember what's going on in this series in particular.
Yeah.
You really notice it when you go, oh yeah, I don't actually remember these other, who these new characters are. Yeah, I agree. I do wish it was a bit more self-contained.
Yeah.
If only because, the characters I mean, I guess as Iron Fist fans, we're a bit biased, but I do think the most interesting characters are Danny and Luke, and have the core group.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's biased, but they just have better plot lines.
It's fine,
because Luke's got this sort of traitor thing going on, which hasn't been something we haven't really seen, and then Danny has this, the heroes are gone, I'm going to summon Kunlun. That's super interesting. Black Knight has, I'm in love with someone. Who cares?
Yeah,
it's like,
and
so Tiger's a tiger person, but they've just been so vague and mysterious with her constantly, and then they made the mistake of tying her into the Eternal stuff, which just big snooze. Again, Ant-Man's fine. He hasn't been there much, but he's fun, and he's only been here a few issues, and he's got this. He's uncovering something, so we'll find out what that is. But yeah,
yeah, it's interesting. Since everything revolves around the Avengers and the Fantastic Four coming back, I guess. So you have to wonder if the writer had to figure out which characters he could use, because the Avengers might want to use Scott Lang, or maybe they won't, or they might want Knight or not. So they're not. It's possible that he's not so sure exactly which characters he can use at the particular times. So, and it's kind of like, it was supposed to, the Heroes for Hire were supposed to replace the Avengers when they were gone. But by this time, they were already back. Yeah, they were, was it in a different dimension? Because, with the Heroes, Reborn.
Oh yeah, something stupid, I'm sure.
They came back. The Avengers and the Fantastic Four came back, and then that sort of you didn't really need the Heroes for Hire anymore because the Avengers are already back. So you've got the Heroes for Hire could go back to not looking like a B-list Avengers team by now.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not very, it's not very, not very Avengers-like for their replacement to be a team that's for hire. You want your super teams to be those who just rescue you or do something good without getting paid, but Heroes for Hire.
I get it as brand recognition, but they gotta.
It could have been really. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say they gotta stop the Heroes for Hire. I think I know it's brand recognition, but just get rid of it because it doesn't make any sense for Danny and Luke at this point. Like,
more right?
Yeah, I mean, though that could have. I mean, I agree that it doesn't make sense really for their characters anymore, but I think the concept that could have been really, if they leaned into it more, especially as Omar says, the idea of Heroes for Hire replacing the Avengers. I think that could have been really interesting if they'd really leaned into that more. The idea of that this is a completely different type of superhero team.
Yeah.
The for hire thing has always been. I mean, Power Man and Iron Fist Volume 1, it came up all the time. It's always been a little. There's been that kind of ethics question aspect to it that I've always found fun and fascinating.
Like, they tried to explain it for Danny, and they generally, they wouldn't turn down someone who genuinely needed help, obviously.
Exactly. But
that made it kind of pointless. Like, well, why be for hire at all? But I guess you got some interesting storylines out of it, but it was also just like...
Yeah, I think it was... Yeah, I found it just very... I mean, particularly, I think, mostly just for Luke, the idea of that he... he needs to pay the bills. He can't get a job for all these different reasons, and this is what he can do. And so it's not like he's out for money. It's just that he needs to eat. And this is the skill he has, and this is he needs to use this identity for it, and so on. So I really enjoyed that. But modern day and more recent ones, it doesn't make quite as much sense.
Yeah.
I think the one with Misty leading the team, and
that was interesting.
I think that worked because that's more grounded.
Yeah, I enjoyed that series as well.
Do we any other thoughts about this issue, or?
I think that's it. I'm actually looking forward to the next issue.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one. I like the story arc. We're kind of getting down to the meat of it. What's been going on?
Well, so hopefully you'll see us in about 2 weeks to a month, and we'll be covering issue 12. So until next time, may your watch out for traitors. You never know where they're lurking.
Yes.
Yeah, even your closest friends.
Yeah. Especially your closest friends. All right. Peace.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Iron Fist and all other characters in these comics are properties of Marvel and Disney. Any music or images we use belong to their respective copyright holders. We do this for fun, so please don't sue us. You can contact us at sonsofthedragonpodcast@gmail.com. Just send us mail, comments, thoughts, anything you want really. It doesn't even have to be related to Iron Fist. If you don't want it read on the air though, make sure you mention that. You can also find us on Facebook, the Immortal Iron Fist Podcast, Sons of the Dragon. Our Twitter, @Iron Fist Podcast. Our SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Sons of the Dragon, hyphens where the spaces are. Our YouTube, Connor Carl. Just search Iron Fist Podcast and you'll find us real quick. We are also on iTunes. If you find us there, give us a review and rate us. If it's less than 5 stars, please say why so we can improve the show. And we're on Podcast Garden in the literature section. And last but not least, head over to our WordPress, Sons of the Dragon, the Immortal Iron Fist Podcast.wordpress.com. That's where I put all the show notes. I'd like to thank Thomas Tissot for composing the Iron Fist theme song we use at the start of our Iron Fist episodes on the podcast. I'd also like to thank Peter John Sikorsky for composing the Power Man and Iron Fist theme we use at the start of our Power Man and Iron Fist episodes. And finally, thanks to you guys for listening.